Welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Nixon. To my right, that is Michael Wein. And tonight, we are continuing our NFL Week 3 Overreactions versus Reality series. I guess week 2 for now. But how this works, if you're new here, is me and Michael have created a list of statements um, encapsulating things that happened in the NFL this week, and we're going to be deciding whether it is a overreaction or if it's reality. Um, so partially a prediction segment, partially a just reaction segment to what we saw in week 2. But if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. About 85% of y'all that watch our videos are not subscribed, so make sure you're doing that. We record twice a week here, once on this podcast, the Raw Prospect Football Podcast, and then on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports as well, where we basically just do college football, but from the perspective of specifically the Texas Longhorns. And then later on in the year, you'll see some basketball on that podcast as well, and some baseball thrown in there for good measure. But now to get into this. Michael, how are you doing, man?
Isn't it weird? I feel like I don't know if I want to call it like a negative connotation or whatever it might. There's a weird stigmatization around subscribing to the channel and that phrase. I find that a lot of YouTube channels that I subscribe to and that I view religiously are always struggling to get like to the next tier of subscribers, and it seems it takes them a while. Like, guys, it's just a button. You click it, and that's all you have to do. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take you long at all, but like 1 or 2 seconds, and it helps us. It helps
That's it.
us, and it helps the YouTube algorithm. So if you could please just subscribe to the channel if you have not, we greatly appreciate it. And, you know, even if you don't like our content, you can be subscribed and not even view a video. I don't really care. But subscribing would definitely help. I'm doing pretty well. I have a busy week, but we got a lot of good football this weekend. If you want to hear about college football, go listen to Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports, which was posted yesterday. That's already up over, I think Emmy said, 70 views. And then the NFL, like always, delivers pretty much every single Sunday. So it's the same structure as last week. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
Yeah. I'll start with mine. My first one is overreaction to reality. The Green Bay Packers are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. What do you think?
I think it's reality. They faced 2 playoff level opponents featuring highly dynamic offenses with the Commanders and the Lions. And it was 2 weeks with dominant wins for the Packers, back-to-back weeks. They, I think, right now have the league's best defense in a bunch of different categories. The Micah Parsons addition has paid dividends big time with the amount of pressure that he's creating. They have 8 sacks through 2 weeks, and they've only given up 3 touchdowns. And they've yet to give up a touchdown in the first half of a game. When you have double the number of sacks than you do touchdowns given up, you're a damn good defense. Jordan Love has been dialed in. He's playing aggressive football. As I mentioned, Micah Parsons feels like he was the missing piece in this team's takeover. The only thing we really haven't seen yet from the Packers is this show travel on the road because they've played 2 home games so far. But if that's the only like box left to check for this team, that says plenty about the caliber of team I think we're dealing with. Feels like they've hit on a bunch of their draft picks over the last 2 to 3 years. I don't know that they're outright favorites, but if you're asking me based on how they're playing right now, if they should be favorites, to win the Super Bowl along with maybe a couple other teams, I would say yes.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. Obviously, injuries can play a big factor with with any team, especially making any type of Super Bowl favorite prediction in the month of September. But that goes with anything. I think the thing that I think gets overlooked here is just how good Jordan Love looks. He looks like a different player. He looks healthy. This is exactly what we saw to close 2023. He just looks on fire. And it seems like the accuracy problems are a thing of the past. Like even the throws that he has missed, they've been missed in a smart way, I guess, like in a way that's away from the defense. Like he missed a deep ball to Golden down the middle of the field. I want to say he missed like a couple of the on the deep balls here and there, but um, you mentioned it. They're playing aggressive football, and that really goes for both sides of the ball. They dictate everything. They're chucking it 20 yards down the field. They're getting big plays, and then they're playing smash mouth, running the football as well with Josh Jacobs. Um, this is a really damn good football team. They're well coached. They have a good quarterback, and their defense is just flat out dominant. They check every box.
This, I know Cowboys fans won't want to hear it, but this Parsons led Packers defense is terrifying through 2 weeks. They held the Lions to, what was it, 13 points in week one? In the Lions offense, which we talked about last week on this podcast after that performance. Go back and listen to that if you want to hear that conversation. Went out and looked like the Lions offense this week when they weren't playing the Packers. They put up 52 points this week on the Bears. They looked back in form. The Packers completely dictated terms in that game. They held the Lions to 3.8 yards per play in that game, which was their lowest yards per play average since Anthony Lynn was calling their offense all the way back in 2021. And then on a short week, facing Jaden Daniels on Thursday Night Football, they clobbered Jaden Daniels. This was a top 5 offense a year ago. Washington was. And they added a great left tackle and Deebo Samuel, who looks like he still has juice left in the tank. And what did the Packers defense do? The Commanders averaged 2.7 yards per play and scored 3 points through the first 3 quarters of that game. Micah Parsons totaled 5 quarterback hurries, 2 quarterback hits, and a sack against the Commanders. And so far this season, he has 8 total pressures. This defense is dictating the way that football games go. They're physical. They don't give you anything easy, at least to this point in the season. Micah Parsons adds that extra juice as that dominant pass rusher that can absolutely wreck a game. He's the guy in that defense that absolutely wrecks the game. But the credit is all around. I mean, Lucas Van Ness, you name it. They have really good Pro Bowl caliber players at every single level of the defense. They have a quarterback who looks like, if he continues to play this way, could put himself in some MVP discussions. And they have a bunch of young weapons and mouths to feed. Like Jaden Reed goes down with a broken collarbone, and if you're a Packers fan, you don't really panic because you got a good run game with Jacobs, and you've got all of these other weapons. And Matthew Golden looks terrific too. So they outside of maybe Philadelphia and Buffalo. Although Buffalo, you can have questions about Buffalo's defense. Green Bay might be the most complete team I've seen so far on both sides.
Yeah. All right. What
All
what do you
right.
have for your first one?
Yeah. So my first overreaction or reality is going to be about the Kansas City Chiefs, who lose to the Eagles this weekend in a Super Bowl rematch, 20-17. And we'll recap picks from last week and do our picks for this upcoming week at the end of the episode. Overreaction or reality, Emmy? The Kansas City Chiefs will miss the AFC Championship game for the first time in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era this season. Overreaction or reality after 2 weeks?
I'm gonna say that's overreaction, and that's for a few different reasons. I think for one, um, I like how Patrick Mahomes has looked, despite them losing both those games. I think he's looked good. Um, I honestly, in a weird way, I actually think he looks faster. Like he's had a bunch of rushing yards, and it's kind of concerning that he's had to, use his legs this much. But he actually like genuinely does look more fast and more explosive in a weird way. But I do think once they get healthy here on the offensive side of the ball, they're gonna have the opportunity to start scoring some points. They're going to get Rashee Rice back in a few weeks. They're just got to kind of survive until then. And I think they'll be okay. And really, it comes down to outside of, well, I guess just in the AFC in general, it really is just kind of wide open. Um, and as far as I can see, because I mean, I've got questions about Baltimore's defense, given how they performed in the second half against Buffalo. I've got questions about Buffalo's defense, given how they performed against Baltimore. And then the Chargers are, we got to see it. We got to see more still. They're still the Chargers. They look like a very good team though. Um, I don't think anyone's taking the Colts seriously as a Super Bowl contender just yet either. So I think the AFC is still kind of wide open. Um, Kansas City will most likely have to win playoff games on the road this coming year, but they've proven that they can do that before. So um, I'm going to say overreaction.
I think it's a overreaction. But what I will say is, well, the first thing that has to happen is they cannot afford more injuries to this offense. And they need to get both Rashee Rice back. When does he come back again? Isn't it like
He's
week
got a
6?
6-game suspension, so week 7.
Okay. They need to find someone, and I think the Thornton kid that they
Yeah,
drafted showed late in that Philadelphia game that he can be kind of that guy that will take the top off the defense for this team in the at least in the short to intermediate term while they wait to get both Worthy and Rice back. But they have to have those guys healthy if they want to get to the AFC Championship. The offensive line and running back so far haven't looked good. It feels like Mahomes has had to do pretty much everything for this offense, and understandably so. The injuries play a part in that, but they haven't really gotten a run game going, a sustained run game going so far. And if Travis Kelce, which it was uncharacteristic of him, on on Sunday to kind of bobble that ball, it ends up in former Longhorn hands Andrew Makuba, who's playing fantastic for the Eagles so far this year. That could have swung the game back in the Chiefs' favor if he had caught that ball. So yes, like Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, until we see that trio not make the AFC Championship game in January with how they seem to always peak come January. And until we see any of these other elite quarterbacks that we talk about trying to get over this Chiefs hump, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, beat the Steve Spagnuolo playoff legend, in January, this will be an overreaction. But I don't know if it's going to be It's not going to be easy because I don't think this Chiefs team is winning this division. I think the Chargers look great. Um, and the Broncos had a tough loss this past week, but I think they're going to be in the race for something later on this season. And look, I mean, the Raiders could be a real team too. And the fact that the Chargers have already beaten the Chiefs once gives them a real head start in this division race. The fact that they're 2 games up already and they have the head-to-head, they're basically like 3 games ahead of the Chiefs.
Yeah, like
Think about
2
it that way.
division wins.
Yep, and they have 2 division wins. I don't think the Chiefs are winning this division, so they are likely going to have to play a wild card game, win a division game on the road. One of those 2 games you would have to think is going to be either at Baltimore or at Buffalo in one of those 2 rounds. And then you got to get to the AFC Championship game. So I'm not going to, look back on this and, have myself look stupid as I have before in these kinds of situations. So I am going to say it's an overreaction, as I do think it is, for all the reasons that you mentioned and all the reasons that I've mentioned. But if it was going to happen any year, this might be the year that you'd be a little bit more worried, especially if something happens to Rashee Rice here, or something happens to Xavier Worthy there. They do need to get the run game going. It can't just be Mahomes running for first downs. That's great and all, and it works, but you're going to have some kind of sustained run game with Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco here down the line in November and December. And I trust that Andy Reid and company will get that fixed.
Right, exactly. And to be honest with you, I mean, they are vulnerable. Like there's no question about it. Even with their guys back, they are vulnerable. They were vulnerable last year, and I'll tell you straight up too. If the Chiefs make the Super Bowl again, I will be very disappointed in the Bills and the Ravens, because if you can't beat this Chiefs team, then my God, are you in your head? Because there's just no world where the Chiefs roster is better than theirs. There's just not.
Yeah, the Bills have actually done a very good job of beating this Chiefs team in the regular season. And the Ravens have come close a couple times. Like in last year's opener, they came very, very close to winning that game. But the game-winning what would have been the game-winning touchdown was actually out of bounds, if you remember that play.
Yeah.
The Ravens clearly have a better roster. It's not even a question. They just have to win
Not choke.
games, not choke leads.
Yeah.
And the Bills have some things that they have to get right defensively. But they have an absolute superhuman at quarterback. So we'll see where that goes. If they didn't have Andy Reid, I probably wouldn't trust them as much. But since they still have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, nothing else really matters until we actually see it with our own eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's go ahead and but I am interested. This is the last comment I wanted to make. Again, I don't think in no world is this Chiefs team missing the playoffs, or am I saying that? But the stat is only 11% of teams that have started 0-2 in the Super Bowl era have made the playoffs. I think this Chiefs team is making the playoffs, to be clear, but I would be curious to know what percent of that 11% have made the AFC Championship. I don't know the answer. I'd just be curious to know that.
Yeah. I remember there was one year where the Patriots started 0-2, and then everyone thought the sky was falling. And then they won the Super Bowl. So that's one that pops in my head. But they can't be many.
It's
There's no
kind
way.
of funny you bring that up because that had to have been with Brady and Belichick, right?
Mhm.
And this is with Reid and Mahomes, which is basically like the next
Yeah.
Brady and Belichick. So it's kind of if anyone can do it, that just goes to show that this is probably the team that's going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for this next one. I think this will be a very interesting conversation. But here's the statement: Kyler Murray is a mid-tier quarterback and will not be the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals in Week 1 of the 2027 season. Now, a little bit of context for this one: the Cardinals have a out in that big contract Kyler Murray signed a couple years ago. If y'all remember, it was the one with the um, like the clause about Call of Duty or whatever. But there's an out in that contract in the 2026. Uh, wait, sorry. Uh, yeah, the 2026 off season, I believe it is. So um, the statement is that Kyler Murray will not be starting for the Cardinals heading into the 2027 season. Overreaction or reality?
I think that's much closer to reality than it is an overreaction. I don't view Kyler Murray as a top tier quarterback. So by default, I think I'd view him as a mid tier quarterback. If we're just going by top tier, like superstar tier, I don't have him in that. Top tier, I probably wouldn't have him in that next group. Mid tier, probably he's somewhere in there, and then you have your bottom tier or your bottom tiers. I don't think he's bottom tier, but he's somewhere in the middle. So I would buy the first part of the statement. And look, hey, good for Arizona. They are 2-0. They did nearly collapse somehow against Carolina this past Sunday. Carolina was driving or kind of on the move with a chance to go down and score a touchdown to win that game after Arizona was up 27-9. And that cost me a 2-0 week in my picks. Thanks a lot. I think Arizona won by 5. They were up by 18 entering the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And the line was 6. I had Arizona minus 6.5, so that wasn't great. But at least I got the other one right. It just doesn't feel like the offense with Murray. They never seem to find any week-to-week consistency. And sometimes it's poor offensive line play, which I'll give him. But it seems like he's just, for me, he's too hot and cold. He's too inconsistent. And how old is Kyler Murray? Do you
I
know how old
think
he is?
he's 27, I want to say.
Okay.
I'll look that up.
Um, I just have a gut feeling we're projecting here pretty much 2 years out. I have a gut feeling that he's not going to be the long-term um, solution in this entire like rebuild, retool that Arizona is in the process of beginning. I feel like there will be a new guy in Arizona by this time in 2 years, which is what we're talking about. I've never found him to be I think he has moments where he is in that top tier, but he doesn't do it consistently enough. And I don't know if he'll ever do it, in the playoffs. And that's really that's I think what could change this is if Kyler Murray goes out either this year or next year and really performs in the playoffs. But do I see them extending him beyond, the end of next year if this level of inconsistency continues? I really don't, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. I think it's the hard part about this is from the Cardinals' perspective, they'll have to decide whether they think they can do better or whether they think starting over will be worth the alternative. Because
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, he's not a bad quarterback, like you
Yeah.
said. He's like a mid-tier quarterback. And I think the reason this conversation comes up is because you watch the second half of that Carolina game, and Carolina is not a good defense for, um, by any stretch of the imagination. And Kyler Murray just looked. He didn't look like someone that's a 7-year veteran in the NFL. Let's just say that. Like
He turned the ball over.
yeah, like he wasn't seeing the field. And when you're playing with a lead, you at the very least need to just take care of the football. And he couldn't even do that. So it's there's too many of those types of moments where you just kind of scratch your head and you go like these types of things really shouldn't be happening at this point in his career. And it just makes you wonder if like the size of him as a player, like him being 5'9", like really is like a hindrance on what his actual ceiling is.
Yeah. And that's the unknown part of this. I think the first part of that statement is reality. We agree he's somewhere in that middle tier of quarterbacks. The second part of the statement, like, we kind of have an idea of what this year's draft class is going to look like, although through 3 weeks of college football, a lot of these top quarterbacks that were projected early on in this upcoming draft don't look very good.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of unsure what that's going to look like when we get to the start of like really talking draft. Um, once the playoffs are dying down and once we get into the college football playoff. But like it's we don't even know like what this class is. So how do we know what like the year after's gonna look like? Is that the Arch Manning year? Is he good? I don't know. Like, does is there a free agent quarterback or a trade that arises that they can make that's better than Kyler Murray? I think you make a real good point, especially if they're a team that say just makes the playoffs. Say they're back in the playoffs next season. Um, is there a guy that elevates them to the next tier? That could be the ultimate like decider in whether or not they go with someone new or they stick with Kyler Murray.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that'll kind of do it on that conversation. Go ahead and give your next one.
Okay. Overreaction or reality? The NFL has caught up with CJ Stroud and he's regressed since his rookie year. Overreaction or reality?
Ooh. Oh man. I'm a big fan of CJ Stroud. I really don't like having to talk about this. Um but it certainly does feel that way, doesn't it?
Yep.
Now, with that being said, the offensive line struggles, the not even just the offensive line struggles, but just the ability to pick up a stunt and pick up a blitz.
Mhm.
It's really bad. And the whole talk heading into the season was they're going to put more responsibility in CJ Stroud's hands to be able to call out pressures and do all these things. But that part of it hasn't really been there the first 2 weeks of the season. Like it's still been really bad from a blitz pickup standpoint and a communication standpoint with his offensive line. So it's hard for me to say he's regressed, but I'm kind of like the general feeling I have watching him is it does kind of feel like he's plateaued a bit. Because you watched him his rookie year, and you know, I mean he was a killer in his rookie year, even with the bad offensive line play. Um, so to now to have two, well, I'm not going to say 2 straight years because we're only in week 2, but to kind of get into the start of this season and have the continuation of last year like this, and have it arguably be worse, is really concerning. Particularly some of the turnover worthy plays he had. He had a play where he just straight up threw it straight to Levante David, and it somehow got dropped. But he hit Levante David in the helmet essentially on a screen pass like that. It wasn't a bullet or anything. He threw it kind of softly. It was super easy to intercept, but Levante David dropped it, and it's like things like that where it's like, okay, like that's pretty strange. Like what was he looking at there?
Yeah. I think you put it correctly when you said he's plateaued. It's hard to say that he's regressed because I think he's looked good at
Right.
times,
Right.
definitely. And he's played well enough for this team to win playoff games in each of the last 2 years. Um, and he does still have those moments of wow. Um, but it does feel like he hasn't quite gotten back to the level of his rookie year. And look, I saw a game in person his rookie year. I was living in Houston and I watched him dice the Steelers up left and right and down the middle, down the seam, left and right and down the middle, down the seam against the blitz, evading TJ Watt, this and that in an absolute blitzing of a game, which ended in like a 30-6 Houston win in his rookie year a couple years ago. So I saw him his rookie year, and he was a absolute thrill to watch. Not necessarily that day as a Steelers fan, but just like in a vacuum, that was awesome. One
Yeah.
of the best quarterback performance I've seen live, and I've been to probably 8 NFL games in my life. Um, he hasn't reached that level. I think the bigger question here, maybe the better question, is the Texans are 0-2. Their offensive line hasn't been fixed. Um, the Colts look really good. They still have a lot to prove, but we can say through 2 weeks, Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones seem to have something going there. And they have a pretty good roster. Um, for this Texans team, which has drafted franchise cornerstones at several positions, including at wide receiver, they have a really deep, good, young wide receiver group. They have a running back who I was really glad to see, like back on the field doing things yesterday, and Nick Chubb. After the injuries that he's been through the past couple years, they have CJ Stroud, and they have like a really good defense. I know they're getting run on a little bit, but they have like a what should be one of the best defenses in football this year. Um, and I really do like D'Amico Ryans, but right now the offense just is in a bad spot. And it feels like scoring 20 points for this offense through 2 weeks is a like really tall, almost impossible task. So like with the Colts looking as good as they are, and with the Jags looking pretty pesky, that's how I'd put it. Game they probably should have won against Cincinnati. Um, once Burrow got hurt, like, are the Texans? I don't want to drag us too far off track. Are they the second best team in this division? Are they still the best team in this division? Are they third best team in this division? I don't know. But the offense certainly needs some work.
Yeah, I think the good thing for us is we are going to find out this week. Houston
Yeah.
plays Jacksonville at Jacksonville.
Oh, that's going to be a
Um,
great game.
yeah,
Those two teams always seem to have at it. Um, the AFC South this year is going to be um, just like a bloodbath. I think when those teams play each other, we'll see what
definitely,
happens.
definitely.
All right, what's your last overreaction or reality question? What you got?
Yeah. My last one is Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones exposed the Broncos defense, and they aren't nearly as good as we thought before the season. Overreaction or reality?
Um, This is a tough one, but I'm going to say it's reality.
Mm.
So look, I still think the Broncos are going to be a top 10 defense this year. But when we're talking about this question in a vacuum, my expectation for this Denver defense was they could be a top 1 or 2 defense in football. Was that they were going to be that. And right now it does not look that way, especially in that game on Sunday against the Colts. And I'll get into some of the minutia here in a minute, but when you say Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones exposed this Denver defense, well, they did that in a variety of ways, and that they're not going to be as good as I expected them to be. Well, that's true. That's reality, because I thought they would be top 1 or 2, maybe top 3, minimum top 5 in football. Could they still be that? Maybe. But I don't think they're going to be quite that good after watching what I watched on Sunday. The main thing that was concerning is when you look at what the Colts did in that game offensively, they were hitting Tyler Warren and the running backs out in the flat against linebackers. And that's where they were targeting the linebackers in the passing game. That is what really killed this Broncos defense on Sunday. They also ran with Jonathan Taylor for like almost 170 yards. So the run defense wasn't as good as I thought. But they really killed these linebackers in coverage. I'm kind of in a wait and see mode with this because they don't have Dre Greenlaw right now.
Yeah.
But with Justin, Alex Singleton and Justin Stranad, I think it's how you say their names. They were in position for open field tackles all game long, but they weren't able to capitalize on those. Daniel Jones was 6 for 6 for 136 yards when targeting either one of those linebackers, according to Pro Football Focus. The linebackers were not good at all in pass coverage. That's where a lot of yards after catch came for Tyler Warren and these Denver running backs, sometimes even the receivers. They don't seem to have a quick fix for that, and they gave up 165, 170 yards on the ground. So I think in a couple ways they were able to expose that linebacker issue, and the run defense might not be quite as good as I thought it would be. So I'm going to say that's right now at least reality for me, because I thought this defense was going to be like maybe the best in the NFL.
Right. Okay. I think what the Colts did that I found interesting was the running game part of it. And we've seen, Shane Steichen teams have really good run games before. And I think he's like a very creative run game play caller. But that was like they were getting gashed, and that's the concerning part. Because when you talk about the best defenses in the NFL, what do they all have in common? They stop the run and they avoid giving up big plays. And Denver gave up both of those on Sunday. So um, when you look at it from that standpoint, like sure, like this can be addressed, but maybe Denver's defense will be more like what we saw from like the Browns in 2023, where they were really good at home and they couldn't do shit on the road. Maybe it'll be more of something like that. But I think it'll be a really good defense. I think it'll be more like a top 8-ish defense, more so. Um, and I think it'll be kind of matchup dependent, because I think this pass rush, when they're able to get home, this defense is going to look really good, because they have Nick Bonito and some of these young pass rushers that are kind of emerging as well. But it's not going to be a every week thing. It feels like.
And in reality, it's funny. The Broncos should be 2-0 right now, but the penalty on the 60-yard field goal gives them a retry, and the Colts knock it in. So they fall to 1-1. That wasn't a great loss for them. So it kind of feels worse when you do all these things defensively in a loss. It kind of feels easier to deal with in a win, but we'll see where it goes from here. But like 28 points for this, if you would have told me like Denver will score 28 after the way their offense looked in week 1, I probably would have taken them to win that game with how I think this defense was going to perform. Actually would have definitely taken them to win that game if you told me Broncos defense is Broncos defense. They look like how they look to get in week 1, and they score 28 points offensively. I'll take them to win that game, even if it's on the road. But at the end of the day, the Colts were able to do some things schematically and in the run game to, maybe expose them a little bit. And they might not be quite as elite as we once thought. But we'll end the conversation right there. Okay. Last one before we get into picks. And to be clear, I don't even know what my picks are going to be. We'll get there when we get there. I am interested to hear what you have to say about this one. Overreaction or reality. The Steelers' defensive struggles are solely on Mike Tomlin, and he should be on the hot seat if this continues the rest of this season.
Yeah. Yes and yes. This is, I mean, it's kind of the conversation you start having in college football a little bit when you have a coach that's been there for a long time. Like, this is Mike Tomlin's show. Like this, like he's in control of it. Like there's no part of this defense that he hasn't, had his bare hands touch.
Yep.
He's had his influence on it. It's not like he's a new coach in this environment. He's been there. So for it to look this bad to start the season, that's really concerning. Now I do think losing your first round pick, Derek Harmon, plays a role in what you expect your run defense to be. Because the reason you go out and you get 2 defensive tackles in the draft is to help that run defense. Now the pass defense, I still think it's a little bit too vanilla for my liking. I think from a scheme standpoint, there's a lot more you can do, especially considering you went out and you got a veteran corner like Jalen Ramsey. Like have some creativity, show some disguise is thrown in there. Like you can't just run cover 1 Rob and just expect every quarterback to just or just expect your defense to just beat every quarterback straight up, even with the quarterback knowing exactly what coverage it is. That's just not how the NFL works. So yeah, if this continues, he will 100% be on the hot seat. But I actually don't expect it to continue on to this extent. I do think that things will get better throughout the course of the season. Now, how much it will get better, that's another question. But I think by week 6, week 7, I think they'll be a top half defense.
They better be. And you like this was. I'm a Steelers fan, so this can come off as maybe too passionate to some, but like when Mike, people will blame the outsiders will blame Terrell Austin this, and they'll make up excuses for the injuries, not having Joey Porter Jr. or this and that or whatever. But the bottom line is Mike Tomlin talked about this defense being legendary at the start of the season. That's obviously not going to happen. They've already made their bed. They're not going to get there. Especially when you compare it to like defenses of past, even like of the past couple years. This was a defense that he told us was going to be like the strength of this football team was going to be one of the best in the league. The Steelers promised us this. They went out and they went big in the draft with Y.A. Black, who's actually looked pretty good this year, and Derek Harmon, who should be back here pretty soon. So that's good. You hope that helps the run defense, because if not, they're in big time trouble. It just doesn't like he has his hands on this defense. This is his defense. You can blame Terrell Austin all you want. You can blame injuries all you want. You can blame even like the age of this defense all you want. The bottom line is like it's been 2 straight weeks where they look unprepared, unmotivated, not ready to go, confused pre-snap, not physical enough, which should be like the minimum for a Steelers defense. Not physical enough in the run game, not getting off blocks, not tackling, missing tackles, missing sacks, which they definitely should have. It's just nothing about this defense is good enough. It's weird to have a Steelers team where, as imperfect as the offense is going to be this year, because the offensive line still is kind of a mess. For like the 4th year running, which is also partly on Tomlin for not knowing how to fix that. With a 42-year-old quarterback, the fact that as imperfect as this offense is, the fact that it's the strength of the team right now and they scored 17 points on Sunday should tell you how bad the defense is. And to make it even worse, I don't think the Bills have a great defense by any stretch of the imagination. But they went into New York this week and gave up 3 points to that Jets offense, and the Steelers gave up 32?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if like this is the thing that if it's the thing that makes this Steelers season go south because they have gone all in on this year pretty much with all the moves that they made in the offseason, part of me will feel like it's needed for this Steelers franchise to maybe, and I've talked about this before, to maybe have a year where you don't finish above 500, where it's something different than like a 9-8 or a 10-7 in a first round exit. Part of me will like deep down feel okay about that and what it means maybe long term for this Steelers team. But like what it means this year and what you were trying to accomplish this year, it's a problem. Because you went all in with these moves, Jalen Ramsey and going out and drafting 2 defensive tackles and this and that. Counting on the progression from Peyton Wilson and all these young players in this defense, and it's not happening. Outside of like a couple plays Jalen Ramsey has made, nothing else really looks that good at all. So, it all falls on him. But my concern is it won't matter because what I don't think Art Rooney realizes and what I don't think the Steelers organization realizes is, or maybe they do realize, but they just don't really care right now for whatever reason. Like, what is the standard in Pittsburgh anymore? Is it just to have a winning season? Because if that's the case, well, first of all, that's alarming. And second of all, well, they'll just keep Mike Tomlin because that's what Mike Tomlin does. But that's not what it should be at all. Like where I just am kind of asking myself questions slowly. Like, what are we trying to do here with Tomlin? I don't know. I think he's a good coach. I think he'd immediately get a job elsewhere. But it feels like some of his ideas for building this team are becoming stale. And that's where I'll end the conversation.
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling in a similar way to how it ended with Pete Carroll in Seattle. Like kind of maybe just the NFL has passed him by in a way. I still think he's a great leader and you know, and all that, but he hasn't really evolved his schemes or anything like that. So
Mm-mm.
um, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Let's get into the last 10 minutes of the show, which is picks. We introduced this on last week's show. Emmy and I will be making two best bets. We're not actually betting. I'm not actually
Yeah, I'm
making
not
these
either.
bets. But we're making the picks and we're having a little mini competition. You can do spreads, you can do over unders, you can do price picks, you can do player props, whatever you want. Any combination of all of those, two picks every week. And to recap from last week, for me, I had the Cardinals -6.5. I talked about that earlier. Should have won that, but did not. Lost that, unfortunately. Look, it was looking good through three quarters, and then it absolutely collapsed. And I was correct on Eagles and Chiefs under 47. That ended up at 37 total points.
Yeah, that was you nailed that one.
So I'm 1-1 right now. Um, I I was actually with Emmy on Jets +6.5. So we both kind of missed that one. I don't know why we had any confidence in the Jets. Thanks a lot, Steelers defense, for making the Jets look better than they actually are. So unfortunately for Emmy, he loses that one. And I definitely thought the Cowboys would beat the Giants by like a touchdown or more, but that did not happen. So
Nope.
Emmy goes 0-2. That's just kind of how this thing goes. I'll have my fair share of probably 0-2 weeks as well. Should have had a 2-0 week, but we'll keep track of this throughout the regular season, and then we'll do it in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at the board yet, so give me a second to pull that up. Emmy, do you want to start us off? Do you have any picks in mind for week
Yeah,
3?
I do. So I look at the games this week, and the thing that immediately popped into my head is I see Pittsburgh at New England, and I see
Yummy.
the over under is at 44.5.
Ooh.
I'm going to take the over in that game. I think those are two, well, two defenses that are still trying to find themselves, especially I think Christian Gonzalez is still going to be out for New England. They just gave up 27 to a very questionable Miami team last week. And then we just spoke about Pittsburgh as well. So I think those are two defenses that are a little bit lost right now. And I think two offenses that I think could take advantage of that. It's a noon game, probably going to be good weather. So I think
Mhm.
it'll make for some scoring.
Okay. Did you have another one, or do you want me to kind of talk here for a minute?
You go ahead and make yours if you have it.
Okay. I need to write this down so I don't forget it. So you're taking the Pittsburgh, New England over, right?
Yep.
And what's the over?
44.5, according to ESPN Bet.
Okay. I like that. I kind of like that. I think a lot of people would probably take the under, but I kind of like that. I would love to see some offense. And I do think both defenses are kind of in a weird spot. So, for me, when I look at this board for week 3, as this is also kind of to serve as like a mini preview for what's coming in the NFL. Um, if I would have told you that in week number 3 of the 2025 NFL season, in a thrilling matchup between the Vikings and the Bengals, that the quarterbacks would be Jake Browning and Carson Wentz, what would you have said? This
I'll be like,
next on ESPN 30 for 30. No, just
oh
kidding.
shit.
No, that's not going to be one of my games. I don't bet games that are. I don't bet, but I definitely wouldn't bet games where you have both backups playing because you just have no fucking clue what that's going to look like. Do I want to get? I think this Falcons team's really good, but do I want to take them -5.5 on the road against Carolina? I feel kind of weird about that. I already got burned once by those fucking Panthers.
Yeah, those big lions are scary.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do for my first pick. Do I do it? Do I do it, guys? Holds Titans, Texans, Jaguars. Okay. I'll take. It's a big line, but I'll take Green Bay -7.5 over Cleveland.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. I think it's a huge line, but I think Cleveland is probably the worst offense in football. Given New Orleans has been decently competitive on offense to start the year. So, I think I have to agree with that. Unless we see like a complete stinker out of Green Bay, I don't
Right.
really see that game being close at all. Okay, my second pick. Oh boy, yeah, some of these are really like some of these lines are huge, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I got to be honest with you. I thought about doing the reason I paused there for a minute is I thought about doing Buffalo -12.5 against the Dolphins, but it is a Thursday game and that can get weird. So I'm not going to do it.
yeah, I
But when
I'm tempted to do the San Francisco over Arizona -1.5. We're basically getting a pick 'em with them at home. And I know it's Mac Jones, but I do like what I've seen out of San Francisco. It is risky though. I'll do it. I'll take San Francisco, getting a 1.5 over Arizona. I'm a little bit, I'm kind of waiting for Arizona to kind of have a letdown week, given how Kyler's been playing. So I think San Francisco is the better football team.
I agree. I do agree. So San Francisco -1.5.
Mm-hmm.
I like where this is going. Hopefully both of us can have 2-0 weeks this week.
Hopefully.
Okay, for me, for my last pick here. So I'm thinking about the Monday night game this week is Lions Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Both really good offenses, at least from what we've seen so far. Outside of when the Lions faced the
Packers.
Packers. That feels like a game that's going to have a lot of points in it. I don't trust the Ravens defense, especially late in games. The over-under's 52.5. I've thought about going over on that, but I'm looking at the other bets on the board. Texans Jaguars is really interesting. The line on that is Jacksonville -1.5. Are the Texans going to fall to 0-3? I don't know.
Yeah.
Screw it. I'll do it. I'll take the Lions Ravens over 52.5.
Yeah. I think that's probably the move. I was looking at that too, but
It is a big
52 and a half.
number.
Yeah,
It's a
52 and
big
a half is
number.
big, but I mean, I think those are two teams that can fill it up. The other one I was looking at was actually the Giants, given that that offense showed signs of life. Well, not really just signs of life. The offense played decently well if you remove the weird penalties on that first try from that left tackle. But I couldn't do it because it's Kansas City at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm honestly kind of scared if I'm the Giants, given that it's a 0-2 Kansas City team. I don't know. In prime time, I don't know. Um, the other one I sneakily thought about was New Orleans. Seattle's -7.5
Yeah,
there.
big spread, man.
That's a big spread. That offense kind of struggles to score points at times. They didn't in this week's game against the Steelers. But, they scored 24 points offensively. They had the gift of a touchdown. We didn't even talk about that play on the kickoff snafu.
Uh,
Um, but it does feel like this Seahawks offense is a little limited in what they can do. And the Saints have actually they're 0-2, but they've actually looked competitive. And Spencer Rattler looks pretty good. But it is a cross-country trip. That's a really hard place to play, especially for a young quarterback. And that Seattle defense is legit. So I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I'm going to stay away from that.
yeah, I
Um,
hear you on that.
any other interesting things? Like, what game this week are you most excited to watch?
Some of these division games are going to be amazing, particularly that Denver LA game in the late window. They're playing in LA, but that's not. I mean, that's not a home game. We all know that. That's going to be like a half Denver crowd at the very least. But that game is going to be really good because those are two really good football teams.
Yeah. I'm interested in a rematch from the playoffs a year ago, Rams at Eagles. That should be an interesting game. And then of course, like the Monday night game should be a thriller, I hope. But yeah, those are our picks. So I'm at 1-1. Emmy's at 0-2. We'll see if we can do better this week. Any parting shots before we roll on out of here?
My parting shot is hopefully the quarterbacks in college football play better for for Miami's sake. 'Cause, oh boy, they're not gonna really have much choices to go around if this continues. Because you look at it, there's Drew Aller, Kay Klubnik, uh, uh, Nussmeyer, Arch Manning. I mean, they've all struggled.
Has Aller looked bad? I haven't watched any Penn State.
Yeah, he who are they playing? I want to say they were playing like Eastern Michigan or something, and he was missing layups. It was so strange. It kind of looked like how he did 2 years ago, and like we kind of saw that go away last year. And he kind of got that accuracy back under control with the short passes, but I don't know. It was weird. We just started missing layup throws. It was just very strange.
Yeah. Um, I think it's not this weekend, but next weekend we get two thrilling night games in college football. We're going to get Oregon and Penn State, and then we're going to get Alabama, Georgia. That's not
Yeah.
this week, but next week. That's going to be cool.
Oh yeah.
Because we'll get, like, out of all the Big Ten quarterbacks, you probably have to say that Dante Moore for Oregon's been the most impressive so far.
Yeah.
Um, that's Penn State's really first huge test as well. So we'll get to kind of get a better feel for what this Penn State team actually is. And then we already kind of like we'll talk more about the Alabama-Georgia game, but Alabama's trying to win trust back in the national media. They've looked better the past couple weeks, and then Georgia just looks like an absolute wagon. And Gunnar Stockton actually looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the conference.
Yeah.
So, if Georgia has like all that talent and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, it might be pretty hard to beat that team, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But Amy, that's gonna be it. Take us out.
Yeah. Until next time. Just like oh, I can't think of nothing. I'm not gonna try. Peace out, y'all. Appreciate y'all watching.
Yep, we'll see y'all next week. Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.